Rick Horrow, keeping score, tennis, big economic time for them. The traditional gap in attention between the Australian and the conglomeration of the three other majors is almost over for us tennis fans, and we obviously can't wait till the two European ones and then coming back over this side of the pond with fervor for the U.S. Tennis Open again. And the bottom line is it's all about money. It's all about awareness. It's all about fans. It's all about facilities. But the guy who knows more, probably knows more, I will say knows more than anybody at the USTA about the dollars and cents, if only because his title is Chief Revenue Officer, and he's also held that position for well over 6 years. Lew Sherr. Lew, how are you?
I'm doing very well. That's quite an intro. I'm thrilled to be with you.
Well, also in the fact that you and some people close to you at the USTA come from that fantastic institution at Duke, and then the Fuqua School of Business at Duke. So our basketball program it took a temporary valley this last year, but they'll be back on top next year, don't we think?
I certainly agree. I think if we could win every other year, that would be quite nice.
Yeah, right. Well, the Giants do it, the Blackhawks did it, so let's see what happens here.
Right.
We're not
well
here to
said.
talk that. We're talking tennis, and we're talking numbers, and we're talking economics. Broadly defined, when you came to the organization after MSG and Time Warner and Clear Channel and all of the diverse experiences you've had, you took an organization that was fundamentally different than it is today. How's the USTA changed, and how's the Open changed?
Yeah, well, thank you. I think we're in the midst of a massive transformation, and a lot of that is physical. So if you were to go out to the National Tennis Center today, you would see over 350 construction workers on site who are 3 years into a 4-year transformation of the physical facility itself. We're investing over $600 million to ensure our venue's position as the premier venue, not just in the sport, but also here locally in the New York City area. That's a major undertaking for us, but we didn't allow it to simply be a construction project. We took it as an opportunity to really redefine our entire business. So we've shifted our sponsorship model. We're relooking at how we approach ticket sales and our hospitality offerings. It's really a unique position to be in as a business where you're successful, yet you can stop and sort of reset on the fly. And rarely do you have that luxury. Typically, it's when things go bad, you have to stop and reset. We're able to use this transformation and the completion of it in 2018 as an opportunity for us to sort of pause, relook our business, and say, what do we want to be for the next 50 years going forward, as opposed to how do we continue what we've been doing so well for roughly 50 years.
Fairly important point, Lew, because when you talk to other people in the sports industry, broadly defined, the facility is basically the corporate headquarters. That's where everything emanates from, the dollars, the boxes, the marketing, etc. So the facility has been in existence for a long time, but there is a fundamental change, as you said, to reflect $600 million plus. What exactly does a new facility or a substantially renovated / like new facility really mean to the growth of the USTA, the Open, and tennis in general?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to late August and September when you can physically be on site and see the transformed 42-acre campus, right? We're different than an arena. We're not just one venue. We've got 17 competition courts. We've got a major stadium that seats over 23,000. But the big pieces that I'd speak to, a roof now going over Arthur Ashe Stadium. It's the largest venue in all of tennis. It wasn't built with a roof in mind. It's quite an engineering feat to be able to put a roof on, retrofit a roof onto, or a retractable roof, I should say, onto an existing venue. But we're thrilled that we can do that. It will be a great benefit to our fans. It takes rain add a play from a scheduling standpoint. It provides schedule certainty for our broadcast partners. That will be the most visible piece just by order of magnitude. It's such a large project. But with that, we're also building and we'll open this year a new 8,000-seat grandstand stadium on another part of the campus. We are rebuilding all of our outer field courts, adding seating, adding more promotional space, more retail space, more merchandise and food and beverage space. So the grounds will feel completely new, more spacious, more amenities, more opportunities for fans to get up close to players on courts. It will feel like a new venue. The last piece of the transformation will be completed in 2018. We will demolish and rebuild Louis Armstrong Stadium beginning after this year's tournament with a retractable roof itself. That'll be a 14,000-seat new stadium with its own retractable roof. Another major undertaking for us, but will also provide just fantastic views and enhanced amenities for our fans, and even more now schedule certainty and competition for those who may just have grounds passes and want to have access to a stadium that's largely general admission.
Lew Sherr, the facility is important. Frustration may be the wrong word, but is it possible that the New York community and the industry takes for granted the economics surrounding the 2 weeks of the U.S. Open and the prolific attendance numbers and the comparative economic impact? When you stack it up, it rivals maybe only a Super Bowl, which, as we know, is held once in a generation in New York, and you have this every year. So this is not a bitterness question. It's just, do you detect that the community may, take your prolific numbers for granted a little bit?
I don't know that it's so much it's taken for granted. I think we're a unique sporting event. We're an international event. We're a festival that happens to have tennis at its core. And so if you were to ask folks in the industry, particularly here in New York, about sort of other properties, other events in sports in New York, I don't know that we come up as top of mind, except for the 2 weeks that were being held, and at that time people marvel at the number of people, right? Our attendance in that 2-week window is larger than the Knicks will do in a full season, than a NHL team will do in a full season, than an NFL team will do in a full season. Our TV viewership dwarfs any of the local or even domestic sports teams, because we have such a huge international following that is just a different dynamic than you would see with U.S.-based sort of teams and leagues. So I'm not sure it's taken for granted. I think we're in our own class and we're looked at that way. I mean, we host so many of the other commissioners and executives from other sports properties and leagues during the tournament. They're all there. They love the Open. They don't view us as competitive in any way, shape, or form. It's just another great sporting event. But I think we are seen as somewhat different. I think the festival atmosphere of it just changes. What we do is more akin to a World Cup every year.
Yeah, it just so happens to get the economic impact every year as well. International.
Yeah, no, and I think we've talked about this in the past, right? We measure that economic impact, and I think our most recent study was probably 2012, calculated roughly $750 million in impact to the city. That's bigger than a Super Bowl. Again, and on the surface, you may not think so, but when you think about 2 full weeks of impact and international fans coming in and taking up hotel rooms and spending money in New York City, not just at our event, again, it's just a different animal.
Absolutely, and I really think that people need to understand that. A segue about the economics for the international audience that hears this and watches this basically around the globe. Everybody understands the U.S. Open is in New York at the end of August, beginning of September, American Labor Day weekend, etc. The study you did, over 700 million people can question assumptions, but most reasonable thinking people understand the dimensions of it, and it's even understated. How do you quantify the awareness, the mentions, the the business that's done, the international destination aspect of this? Because, you and I both know that's well beyond the metrics of any given study, but yet nonetheless incredibly important.
Yeah, no, important to us, important to the players, also important to our corporate partners who associate with the event. There are a variety of metrics that we track to help us gauge our international exposure, penetration, whatever term you want to apply to it. So first and foremost, we do surveys on site. We know that 15% of the fans, 1/5 of the fans that come on site during the tournament are from outside the U.S., and we can even break that down by most popular countries and that sort of information. We track our digital traffic, and we know that more than 50% of our web visits, for example, come from outside the United States. And then we also calculate up viewership information from many of our international broadcasters around the world. Most of the more sophisticated markets have the ability to do that. There are some less sophisticated markets that may not be able to quantify actual viewership. They may be able to quantify reach or things like that. But we're becoming increasingly more attentive and also sophisticated at trying to track our visibility and our event exposure around the world. We have a research company that we've retained that conducted a study. The U.S. Open is the single most valuable sort of global signage, if you will, sports property originating in North America. There is nothing else happening in North America that generates the visibility for sponsor signage that the Open does. Not a Kentucky Derby, not an F1 race, not a Super Bowl, not a golf tournament. And, when you think about a 2-week event with hours and hours and hours of programming, hundreds of hours of live programming, and the fact that we have signage always in view, different than other sports, it's not surprising, but again, folks don't necessarily think about our event in those terms.
Well, they do now. A couple more for Lew Sherr, Chief Revenue Officer, USDA. Broadly, let's get into just tennis in a more general context. Wimbledon after French, and we got 3 of the big 4 coming up. If you had a magic wand from your perspective and you could change one thing in both men's and women's tennis, what would it be?
It's a great question, and I appreciate that you said both men's and women's tennis, because I think one of the things that's exceptional about this sport is the level of gender parity that has been achieved, both at a participation level, at a celebrity factor, at a attendance level, whatever filter you want to use. But I think the season certainly loses some continuity when you start in January, and then your next slam doesn't hit until May into June. And I think the season is quite long as well. And I think it's hard for fans to follow a season that begins in January and in some cases goes all the way through November till you get to the year-end championships in the respective tours. It puts a lot of burden on the players to travel. Unlike golf, we have global tours. We don't have a U.S. tour and a European tour, so those players have to cover unbelievable distances over the course of that season. And so I think figuring out the seasons themselves and maybe how to focus those might be beneficial to the sport to make sure you've got the best players playing as often and in front of the largest crowd you possibly can.
Got it. And then final question as far as the tennis world is concerned, kind of future of it, look at your crystal ball 5 years, 10 years from now, and not just the U.S. Open because it's bigger, better, you're going to add some more zeros, everybody understands that. But where does the future of professional tennis go, broadly defined? What's it look like in 10 years?
Yeah, well, look, I'm in the industry. I'm quite excited about what the future looks like, both here in the U.S. and globally for our sport. The investments that are being made, not just by us, but Wimbledon, the French Open, the Australian Open, in their facilities, the investment you see in Indian Wells, for example, at the 1,000 level, or tournaments in Rome and the Chinese venues that are being built, I think will lead to just greater events, better fan experiences around the globe for folks that want to follow the sport. I think the emergence of digital platforms and our ability to deliver content and lots of content to folks in a more individual manner. So you're not just sending one match around the world. If anyone wanted to see a particular match at the U.S. Open, we're broadcasting digitally on almost all of our courts. So you've got the opportunities to do that. So I'm bullish. We've got, historic players right now, whether it be Serena, Roger Federer, Nadal. It's a golden era for the sport from a personality standpoint. But I think we've seen that the sport regenerates itself every decade, every generation or so. You will see a new crop of stars emerge, and I'm excited about who those new players could be and what that might mean. And we've got reason to be optimistic that some of those players may be young Americans in that mix, which I think will be great for tennis here in the U.S. But it is truly an exciting time for the sport. It's growing at a participation level, and certainly the governing bodies are making the investments into the health of the sport to ensure success for another generation.
I'm sure you want to answer this final question. You should be excited about it. Who's going to win both the men's and women's sides of your tournament this year?
Boy, I'm the last guy you would probably want to ask that question. But there, I think we'll see some of the great players again. I mean, Serena is the favorite going into any tournament that she plays. It's exciting to see Nadal winning again. I think is great for the sport. Federer continues to be up there. Murray's playing well. Djokovic is potentially putting himself into a historic place in terms of wins. So I don't know that I need to pick anyone. Any of those would be great champions and would make for exciting finals.
You may not want Lew Sherr to help you pick your finalists for tennis, but if you want to get him in a position of generating some money for your tournament, he's your guy. USTA Chief Revenue Officer Lew Sherr, thanks very much.
Rick, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Talk to you.